Welcome to the Our State Book Club podcast. I'm your host, New York Times bestselling author and North Carolina native Wiley Cash. In today's episode, we'll return to Wilmington, North Carolina, where we sit down with author Clyde Edgerton to discuss his novel, The Bible Salesman. How did growing up in the church in North Carolina and a famous Flannery O'Connor short story influence his writing of this wonderful novel? Clyde, thank you again for joining us. So, can you tell us a little about your novel, The Bible Salesman, kind of who it features and what goes on in the novel, and then tell us a little bit about the origin story of the novel, where it came from and how you came to write it?
Did I write that novel?
You did. You wrote most of it.
I think I need to, in order to get it in my head, I should tell about the origin first.
Sure.
And then get into the novel, because it was so much fun to write. I mean, it was one of those that you don't have to work at as hard as some of the others. Some of them take work. Some of them just kind of come easy. And they're all different, as you well know. Two Mississippi writers, Tom Franklin and William Gay, asked several writers to write a tribute to Flannery O'Connor. Rather than calling them back and asking them exactly what do you mean, I just had the idea of writing a short story because two of my favorite literary characters are in her work. One is the Bible salesman.
Manly Pointer.
And the other is the misfit. The misfit is one of my favorite characters in a different way than Manly Pointer is. It's hard. I won't try to explain it because I don't quite understand it. So I decided to write a short story. I said, why shouldn't I write a short story with a Bible salesman and a misfit? But I've got to be very careful. I can't use her characters. So I'll have a Bible salesman that knew her Bible salesman. I'll sneak that in a little bit. And I'll have a misfit. I have a bad guy. So I write a short story, and it's 10 pages long or so. And I send it around. I got it published. My editor, Shannon Ravenel, has been wonderful to me. I've been so lucky to have. I sent her the story, and she said, and it ended in a way that wasn't right. And she reminded me of that, so I went back and had it. Now, they're both crafty people in the short story.
Yeah.
The Bible salesman is kind of mean and crooked, and as is the older guy, the misfit. So I thought, I need to write a novel. I had just heard Wendy Brenner say in a meeting that you can have a piece of fiction with sentences, and you can put sentences between the sentences. In other words, you can make it grow. If you read a sentence and the next sentence follows, this can be a scene, a description, whatever, then leave it alone. But if you read the next sentence and then you read the third sentence, and between the second and third sentence you think about things you can add, go to it. So those 10 pages turned into 100 pages. And that was kind of a magical thing that happened. But I realized that I couldn't have two crooked people. It was no friction there.
Sure.
So I made Henry be quite innocent to start with. And I made Preston Clearwater be pretty crooked. And they were fun to write, and I got them together with the young man, Henry, selling Bibles. And Clearwater thinks he's going to be easy to manipulate, and Henry's out selling Bibles and believes in this man, and this man is crooked as he can be. And so that's kind of the story of the novel. And then toward the end, it got kind of dark. I mean, I had to get into some weird stuff.
Yeah. Henry lives with his aunt and his favorite uncle, and he is raised in the church in a very religious community from his aunt. Maybe not so much the uncle. The uncle's got a kind of a wild streak to him that's fun and nurturing and kind of holistic. But then there's this woman in the neighborhood that he goes and visits, and she's got these cats that talk. Can you talk about your decision to have talking cats in the book?
So much of this.
Who say just the most bizarre, hilarious stuff.
This is a good lesson about having a good editor. Pat Strong is my editor at Little Brown, and I just got so carried away. How did I get carried away? I got carried away because of an elderly woman in my community when I was growing up who had a lot of cats. And what community didn't have that?
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I got a little boy going down to her house. I think maybe I went down to her house. And so this is 2 or 3 short stories that are pulled into this novel. And the little boy goes in and he's bringing her something. And suddenly one of the cats starts talking. And it scares him, and it's really her throwing a voice. So in the first draft of the novel, early draft of the novel, and the cats quote scripture.
Yeah, and their names were like John the Baptist.
Yeah, so I could go through it, and I could play with scripture.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to play with scripture. At least I wasn't growing up, but this was a way to play with scripture. If you got cats giving scripture, what? So when Pat Strong, the editor, sensible editor, read this novel with all these cats talking throughout the whole novel, she said, "You got to cut way back on the cats, please." So I saw that she was right, and I cut way back on the cats.
One question I wanted to ask is, you have Henry Dampier, this kind of innocent young man. He's what, 20 years old, around there? And then Preston Clearwater, this very seasoned, very manipulative criminal.
Right.
And they're kind of oil and water. And so I liked the point you made where you can't have two characters who are the exact same, because you then might as well just have one character, right? Because if there's two of the same, there's no friction. So between these two, the reader understands the friction, but poor Henry doesn't really until it's way too late, right? We're always waiting to see what is Preston going to convince him to do next without him knowing. But then Henry kind of has this awakening or this evolution of his own understanding of scripture in the novel. Can you talk about that? And how did that come to you, where he starts reading the Bible literally, not in terms of the miracles in the Bible, but literally in terms of what the Bible might permit him to do as a believer,
Right.
or the pursuits of pleasure that it might allow him to chase that he did not feel comfortable doing before he left home and went on the road.
Right. He has a relationship with the Bible. He's selling them, and he's in a position where in hotels and motels at night, he can read it. So he decides to start reading from the beginning. That happened to me. I tried. I didn't get very far, but I was raised in a fundamentalist household.
Sure. Me too.
Where the Bible was literally true. It was sacred. So anyway, so I thought, well, what would have happened if I had started reading the Bible from the beginning through? And so I had my characters do it to see what they would do. And so I had one character early on, and then I had this guy. He's out on the road selling Bibles to see what he would think. And so he had to ask hard questions, and he's trying to make money. He's falling in love.
Yeah. Experiencing sexual desire for the first time.
Yes, and he is experiencing a very manipulative, evil guy who's there with him every day, almost. As a novelist, it's a way to get at questions, which, again, we get back to that messaging thing. It would be easy to give messages.
Sure.
And so I tried to avoid that in the novel, but it comes straight out of my own experience, the whole business of dealing with the Bible that way.
Yeah, I was raised in very, very fundamentalist household too. In a silly story that came out of that, I'll never forget. My mom was maybe like an assistant teacher in a Sunday school class or something, and we were looking at paintings from the New Testament. There was a picture of Mary. Jesus is a little boy in this painting or this coloring book drawing. And I said, gosh, Mary kind of looks like a witch in that picture. We went to lunch after that. My mom said, I cannot believe you said the mother of the Lord looks like a witch.
I won't go into the stories of similar stories. There's so many of them.
We will be right back after this break with Clyde Edgerton. It's June, so perhaps you're looking forward to sitting by the pool or on the beach, and that means you need something good to read. Well, 3 former Our State Book Club authors have new books out this season. Let's start with memoirist Judy Goldman, whose new memoir, The Rest of Our Lives, shows us all, young and old, how turning 80 can be as baffling and surprising as losing your virginity. In this book, Goldman looks back and forward on a life full of the unknown. And it wouldn't be summer if Christy Woodson Harvey weren't back with another page-turner. In her new novel, Beach House Rules, a woman named Charlotte loses everything after her husband is arrested for white-collar crimes. She and her daughter have no choice but to move into an old bed and breakfast for abandoned mothers and their children, where they might just find the family they've been searching for all along. And finally, Brendan Slocum is back with another mystery set to music. The Dark Maestro is about a cello prodigy named Curtis Wilson, who's forced to enter the witness protection program because of his father's illegal activities. But it's not enough to hide his identity, and Curtis is forced to fight back while risking what he loves most. These are 3 new books just in time for summer by authors who have proven why North Carolina readers love them so much.
This podcast is produced by Our State Magazine, celebrating North Carolina travel, food, history, and culture since 1933. Check out ourstate.com, where you can explore exclusive content like digital stories, YouTube videos, newsletters, and more. To have each month's issue delivered to your mailbox, visit ourstate.com/subscribe and enter promo code BOOKCLUB, one word, Book Club. That's BOOKCLUB for $5 off any regular or gift subscription.
We're back with Clyde Edgerton. So, Clyde, I mentioned Judy Goldman during the break there. She has a new memoir out. Judy is one of my favorite writers and people, period, like ever. And she mentioned you to me a while back, and she said one time she asked you about how to write a novel. She wanted to write a novel. And you mentioned this in our first episode. It's 30 scenes, right? You put together 30 scenes and connect them. Well, how do you write a novel? And how did you write The Bible Salesman?
I use the 30 scenes. I just say I use Josephine Humphrey's definition of a novel. A novel is a series of scenes with meaning. I will say this little story. When I wrote my first novel, I was halfway through. I had 30,000 words, which is very short. It's 120 pages. And I didn't know if I was through or not, and I didn't know any writers. It had kind of a beginning, middle, and end. I sent it to Sylvia Wilkinson, another North Carolina writer who lives in California. I knew her. She's a distant cousin, and I sent it to her. She sent it back to me. She said it's too short. She said, all you need to do for the second half of the book is get those aunts. I had 3 aunts, and Aunt Naomi, Aunt Flossie, and Aunt somebody. Get those aunts together at a dinner table and just let them talk. And that's kind of what I did.
Yeah.
I just had a lot of conversations happening. So putting your characters together when you know them fairly well and you wait to see what they say is risky and dangerous and hard to do.
Yeah.
A lot of it's hard to do. And I've been working on a novel forever through all kinds of things called The Funeral Militia, just based on a funny story a friend of mine told me. I won't tell the story, but from one story, I couldn't get that little story out of my head, the way some people were dressed, and I wanted to write about them. I said, don't tell me anymore, I want to write about them, and that started the novel, and it's developed. So how I write a novel is not worry about the beginning. I know that that's going to be the last thing I write, probably, because I'm going to learn what it's about as I write. And then when I do write the ending, like I wrote one novel, the reason I'm rambling around so much is that each novel has a different story that's interesting about how you wrote it and how it came to be.
Never the same.
And they're all different.
Twice, yeah.
You tell students, you're let down in the jungle and you write that first novel and the helicopter pulls you out and you say, thank God I know how to do it now. And so the helicopter takes you to another place and you go down and the jungle's different down there. And
That's
you
a
don't know how to
great-
build. You don't know how to build a hut. There's
That's a
only
great way
bamboo
to
there.
talk
You
about
can't
it.
you can't chop down trees, and it's just then you go. So anyway,
Every time I start a novel, I think, I don't know how to do this, and do I even want to do this? Do I want to devote the time and energy to doing this? So how did you feel in writing The Bible Salesman, going back into that kind of haunted, vaunted Flannery O'Connor territory? Did you feel the weight of her?
I got away from her right away. She is so fascinating as a storyteller. And a lot of people connect religion to her stories and say that she was a Catholic writer. She was devout Catholic. She said all kinds of interesting things about Catholicism, about Jesus, about the blood, about grace, she had an interesting internal life. Do you know the movie? Have you seen the movie?
I have
Wildcat.
No, I haven't yet. I want to see
I
it.
did not think I would like it, and I loved it.
Yeah,
They
I've
did
heard
such a
really
good
great
job
things
with that.
about it.
So she deserves being studied, like many writers, or people who are interested in how art works with a human being and human beings, and the reception of art and what it means. It's a never-ending topic. I don't think AI is going to be able to kill it. I think it'll be alive still. But what was the question?
Well, I think you answered it. How did you feel writing under Flannery O'Connor, going back into her
Oh
territory?
yeah, I lost her and got with my characters.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is perfect, Clyde. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for doing this.
Happy to be here, and thank you for doing it.
Absolutely.
What might it be like underneath the sunrise in a state of flight? Coming back on me, it seems wonderful, the wandering mountain birds on a beach. Never moments ever wasted, turning away from your love. Honeybees, gardens of sweeter fruit never tasted, no turning to other things. Will you be, will you seem? Sweeter fruit never tasted, don't turn your back on me. Mountains pushing into the sea.